Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I just wanted to give you an update on the Inaccessible boot device, the whole story as it's all laid out now in part 6. So for those of you who've missed the first couple of parts, basically a customer contacted me. They've got a production machine. It's worth a lot of money. It was a lot of money when they bought it. And I gave them a couple of options for fixing or repairing it. And they said they'd get back to me. And now 4 months later, they've still not gotten back to me. So since this is a good customer of mine that's been with me over 10 years, I thought I would just do the absolute minimum at no charge to them just to get it out of my office so I'm no longer liable for it. And since I had it all apart and I have to put it together anyway to give it back, I might as well just do the minimum repair, not charge them for it, not guarantee anything, and just go, here, it's working. I don't know how long it'll work, but you know, it's out of my hands and out of my responsibility and liability. So thought I'd show you what the end result looks like. I ended up changing the other front fan that was up here. There was an LED fan that blinked different colors, which is very unprofessional and distracting. I had to hot melt glue this top back on, and then I had to change the memory card reader. This is one of those projects I wish I'd have taken the whole thing apart and just started from scratch, because there were screws missing. Where there were screws, they were the wrong screws. You know, the memory card reader wasn't sitting flush, and the more I took it out, the deeper I got into it, the more I realized it was all assembled wrong. Even the screws that hold the adapter plate were wrong. The screws from the memory card to the adapter plate were wrong or missing, and then the card reader didn't work after all of that. So I ended up switching that out. And then when it came to the cabling, I was hoping I could get away with using one cable to power the optical drive and the hard drive and the SSD. That wasn't going to work. And then I would have had to have run another cable just for the optical drive and yet another cable just for the fan controller, because the fan controller requires a Molex cable. So what I did is I just grabbed a Molex to SATA adapter, and that way I was able to use the Molex cable and just get rid of this cable altogether, which gives us much cleaner cable management. Now, this has come a long way. If you remember when the machine was, when I first exposed the inside of the machine on part 1, this fan was oriented with the fan down so that the Intel logo, I'm guessing, was visible through the little window that's here. And then there was a fan up here. So I've removed the fan that was up here. The fan on the door didn't work, so I replaced, or I'm sorry, a friend of mine came over and we kind of played around with it, and he showed me how to get it working. I kind of had a little bet with him. I didn't think, I mean, the fan was frozen, it wouldn't move. And I'll make a future video on how to fix fans, but that's essentially something he taught me that I usually can't be bothered to fix a fan. They're so inexpensive, and my time is worth money, so it's worth more of my time to pay me to fix it. You know, you could buy 4 fans for what it costs you for me to fix a fan. But for you guys, if you want to fix your own fans, it might be worth it to you, and I'll cover that topic a bit later in a future video. So a couple of things. The power supply was in upside down. That's been corrected. The bracket wasn't adjusted properly. It's almost like they ignored the bracket. What else? The front fans I mentioned. The RAID array has been removed and a single 1 terabyte hard drive has been replaced. That reduces a lot of cables, by the way, and it certainly reduces the odds of there being any problems, since you only have 1 hard drive that can fail instead of 3. If you have 3 hard drives, you have 3 times the likelihood of having a problem. And of course, those were configured into RAID 0. They were 3 250s. So with the 1 terabyte drive, it actually gives them a quarter more space. It's also faster. And ultimately, it'll be more reliable. RAID 0, like I say, you have 3, your odds are triple that you'll have a failure. So here's what it looks like with everything done. Keeping in mind this case was not designed for any cable management whatsoever. This is what I was able to do with it. And let's take a look. Let's turn it on and show you what it looks like. Let's start with putting the cover back on. So let me come around here. Now, initially, I was going to make this video yesterday. However, the temperature in Arizona has been very, very high, and we had a little bit of a power outage, and as a result, my air conditioner stopped working on a 114-degree day, which is not good. So I had to stop everything I was doing to fix that, because I can't get any work done the house gets hot really, really fast. So I had to diagnose and fix my AC unit. And then the house took a long time to cool down. It was cooling down about 1 degree per hour. So to get from 83 back down to 78 took about 5 or 6 hours, which is crazy. And now today it was 119 degrees today. That's about 38 degrees Celsius. It's very, very hot. And I went back to work on this to get this done. Now, when we put the side panels back on, what's nice about these side panels, despite the fact there's no cable management, there's also no tabs along the top or bottom, which means putting the panel on when you've got potentially cables in the way like this here. I only have to put the front in, like so. Make sure that those front clips line up here, and then just push the panel in, and then the thumb screws will hold it into position. That's all there is to putting that panel on. So we actually can get away with quite a bit of cabling back there, despite the fact it's not really designed for it. And I suppose I need to get the screws out for that. So let me do that right now. Just set that there for now. Let's grab the screwdriver. Yeah, there were tons of screws missing out of this thing that should have been installed. Everything was just kind of loose and flailing about, which is fine if the computer's never moved. But this computer does get moved. In fact, it was moved from one office to another office. Then, of course, it's moved when I have to pick it up and bring it to my office for working on it. So you'll see all these silver screws here. Those were all missing. And let's see, let's try this again. So we put the front on first. Let me make sure I'm not pinching any cables. Everything looks pretty good there. And then I've got the thumb screws right in here. We can just get those started. I'll just be happy to get this back into the customer's hands and out of my responsibility. I don't want this computer in my shop. It's big, it's in the way, especially when all the parts were loose. It's easy to either misplace parts or think they go to a different machine. Especially the busier you get, the more machines you get, it gets hard to remember which one goes where. So anyway, as you look at this, with the fan now blowing this way on the CPU, then the rear fan is also blowing that way. We're moving all the air, bringing air in here. It's all moving this way and out through the back. That's why you don't need a whole bunch of fans. If you think about your airflow, when you add more fans, you start interrupting that airflow. You start creating dead zones where air isn't moving. So I generally avoid any fans on the bottom except for the power supply. I avoid fans on the top, and really limit fans on the front unless you have a video card that needs to be cooled or a bunch of hard drives. Otherwise, you really don't need a fan on the front for the most part. And then making sure that, in this case, we've got a fan on the door, which I don't think we really need it, but it does blow right over the video card, and we were able to get it working again. And it's a big part of the door. So let me grab that, I'll show it to you. Now that we've got it all working, should be able to just put that right back on. And I mentioned in the previous video that this fan was very expensive to replace, this one right here, because it doesn't have a standard connector on it. It ends at a little circuit board down here. And that little circuit board right there makes connection when you put the panel on that powers the fan. Because of that, that fan is $25, which is ridiculous. Normally I wouldn't have fixed the fan. Again, a friend of mine did it and showed me how he did it, which was pretty interesting. I wouldn't spend my time doing it. It's just $125 an hour of labor versus a $25 fan. It's just cheaper to buy multiple fans. Get in and out of there as quickly as possible, help the next customer. So that's the philosophy. There was an exception made in this case. When there's a customer that's a good customer, as this one has been, it's important to keep that into consideration and make exceptions for customers that are loyal and have been a major contributor to the business. You know, I'm looking at the window now, and it looks like even if that heatsink was turned the other way, you still really wouldn't see the Intel logo at all. The window just kind of shines, opens up into the RAM. That's pretty much all you see. Let me turn it on here and give you an idea what it looks like. Let's move this back. You'll also get an idea of the boot time. Again, I did the minimum that I would do on a repair, which is everything has to work, but I didn't necessarily use new parts. And I'm not charging the customer anything, and the customer has abandoned it. So the customer hasn't told me to keep it. The customer's just kind of gone silent on this topic. On other topics, the customer's very communicative, but on this particular issue, the customer's like, I'll get back to you, I'll get back to you, I'll get back to you. So I'm forcing this machine back to the customer. And like I said, since I had to put it back together from taking it apart to diagnose it, I thought, why not just fix it while I'm on my, do the bare minimum to get it to run, since I've got to put it together anyway, give it back to the customer and go, here, there's no charge for this, there's no guarantee on it, and when you make up your mind what you want to do, you let me know. But in the meantime, it's out of my office. It's been here far too long. And let's see if we can give you some video here of what this looks like. Here we go. It's also a bit lighter now. It's still a heavy machine, but not as heavy as it was when I brought it in. Let's see, I need to take my monitor, so let's grab that. Sorry guys, I gotta go blind here. I can't see you guys anymore. Let's move that here. We'll plug it in back here. I need a keyboard and mouse, so we'll steal that from here and we'll plug that in up here. I've checked all the USB ports on the front. Of course, I've checked the memory card reader, as I previously mentioned. Everything's working like it should. All the fans are turning, hard drive's working, machine's booting, all the updates have been installed. After 4 months, it was missing quite a bit of updates, not just from the malware bytes and from Windows, but from a couple other applications as well. And let's see what happens. Turn it on. Here we go. So again, no more fans up here. Here's the side fan. Not sure if with the lighting the way it is, maybe I can cut some lights here and you guys can see it a little better. I'll cut this light too. So hopefully you can see those lights a little bit better there on the side. And this fan, if anything, adds a bit of noise here. So another reason to not have this fan. But again, it's a significant piece of the panel. So by removing the fan, it's almost like you have a big hole here. But it's not terribly loud. There we go. So it's all booted up. That's what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and shut it back down. That's actually a TeamViewer error because I don't have any internet access, and TeamViewer starts with the computer. Let's go ahead and shut it back down. And then there's your shutdown time right there, nothing to it. And let's bring the lights back up so I can talk to you some more. There we go. So, it's still shutting down. There it goes, now it's off. So let me just let me unplug this so I can rotate it around a little bit for you. So here's the final project. Like I say, for some people, what you got to keep in mind is, for some technicians, this would be a $300 or $400 repair. I'm doing it for free. For some technicians, they would have let a lot of the stuff go. Things that were missing screws, they probably would not have replaced. They probably wouldn't have the OCD that I have to do it, make sure everything is done right. So the card reader would wobble around. Now it's secure now. There were some slots missing here in the back, some slot covers. I replaced those slot covers. And like I say, the whole adapter piece that was holding the CPU, that was holding the power supply, was completely just twisted. It was wrong. It was angled and the screw was missing, and it just wasn't being used other than to lift the power supply up. And the power supply was installed upside down. That created other problems, not only fitment issues, but also cabling issues. You know, you want those cables to get as close to the motherboard as possible for the cleanest cable management. And now the machine's a lot easier to work on. If I ever have to work on it again with all the cables tied and wrapped, as you can see, it's going to be a lot easier if I have to get back in there. Now, ideally, the customer will have me replace this computer and use a better case than that one. I'm not pleased at all with that case, but given how old it is, that case was modern when they bought it. So it's just that time, I suppose. So let me get this moved over here. And let's grab the keyboard and mouse. And let's very quickly say hello to people in the chat. We got about 200 people in there. First of all, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me today. And let's see. Is this the same PC that was used for accident reconstructions? Yes. Yeah, this is part 6. So this PC has been talked about quite a bit since the middle of February when I first picked it up from the client, and there's quite a bit of information on this PC regarding how it's used, how important it is, how expensive it was when it was new, and how much needs to be replaced to the point that it ought to just be completely replaced. Like, I don't like the case. It's very difficult to work on. There's no cable management. It's big, it's heavy, it's got LED fans on it. Well, I've taken them all out except for this one on the side. There's no USB 3.0 on it, etc. So first of all, we need a new case. The power supply doesn't fit right. It won't fit right in any case. It's a weird power supply. So let's replace the power supply and also get one that's 80 plus efficient. Then we should change the CPU to something more modern. That requires changing the motherboard and also changing the RAM. I think it's got DDR2 in there now. We need to go to DDR4. The solid state drive is SATA 2. We really need to go to SATA 3. And since the solid state drive is only 160 gig, and the RAID array was a RAID 0 with 3 250 gig drives totaling 750 gigs, 750 plus 160 still does not equal a terabyte. So I'd like to put an M.2 drive in there that's a 1 terabyte M.2 in a brand new motherboard with a brand new CPU, brand new RAM, and a brand new case. And we could carry over the optical drive and we could carry over the memory card reader, but those are two $20 parts. So why not just take this PC, stick it in a corner somewhere as an emergency backup, or give it a task that's not mission critical, where performance and speed are not important, and let's replace it with a machine that's much more modern, faster, warranted, just all of the benefits that come with a new PC. This PC's quite a few years old. It's due, especially for the job that it does. So the client tells me how important the PC is, yada, yada, yada. Then the client says, I'll get back to you. And then when I bring it up, the client says they're still thinking about it. And then the client says they only have one case that they need this computer for this year, which doesn't mean they haven't gotten a case again since, another case or more since I've talked to them, but they've not mentioned this computer. They've mentioned other projects, but anytime I bring this computer up, there is just, I'll get back to you. It's like not a priority to them. So now it becomes my priority to get it out of my office, and I don't make any money on it. You see how much time I've spent on this. I don't have to. There's nothing that obligates me to do this other than my ethics and my standards. I think it's important to always do the best job I can do, regardless if I'm getting paid for it or not. And I want to keep the customer happy. Like I say, this is a customer I've had over 10 years. So it's important for me to keep them happy. And you just kind of write it off as the cost of advertising. For example, if let's say I didn't have this customer, I would need several other customers to equal what this customer has given me, that I've made or profited from this customer in work over the last 10 years. How would I get those customers? I would have to do marketing. It would cost me money. So this isn't really costing me anything to give them a card reader that's laying around and give them an old 1 terabyte hard drive I have laying around, to use a bunch of zip ties to tie up the cabling, and my time. That's ultimately what it's cost me. And then, of course, my time and gas in driving the machine back and forth to the office. So I need to really, as I mentioned before, when I have a customer system, if you're going to work as a tech, you take liability of that machine. So if anything happens to it while it's in your possession, it's your responsibility, and it's up to you then to replace it should it get stolen or be lost or damaged while it's in your possession. Or if you were burglarized and someone stole it, or there was a fire or a flood while it was in your possession, you would be responsible for replacing it. And chances are, if you're working out of your home, chances are your homeowner's insurance will not cover that. It won't cover business things unless you have a clause in your homeowner's insurance for that. Things get really messy and complicated. So also, it's more stuff you have to work around, and everything gets crowded. And so there are times when I have to force a customer's hand, such as this, in order to what it does is the customer that abandons a machine like that, or they can't make up their mind, it's like plugging up the pipes, and everything starts getting backed up behind it. So what I have to do is more or less clear that blockage out. This machine has been a blockage. It was becoming one, and I get my hand forced to have to deal with it. Now, was that part of the customer's strategy? Did they know that all along? I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. All I care about is I get it out, and the machine can be used the way it is. I don't know how long that hard drive is going to last that I put in there, and I don't care. It's not going to be my problem anymore. I suppose that if I had to guess what's going to happen next is I will drop it back off to their office, and it will sit there unused for months until they need it. And then that's when I'll hear back. And at that point, it'll be an emergency, right? Because they're going to wait till they need it. And if it breaks down when they need it, that becomes an emergency for me. So this isn't really solving the problem. What it's doing is it's like a game of tennis. The ball, when they had the computer, it was in their court. The ball was in their court. Then they called me and asked me to work on it, which hits the ball into my court. Now, before I can hit the ball back, I need to know, what do you want? They say, I don't know what we want. We'll get back to you. And the whole tennis game is paused and in limbo. And in the meantime, I'm trying to play other tennis games with other people, and I can't because this one's holding me up. So this enables me to hit the ball back, puts the ball back into their court, and then I don't have to think about it or worry about it until they call me with their emergency, which is probably what's going to happen. However, it's also possible that the used parts I put in will run for years and years and years, and it'll do what they need it to do. It'll just do it slowly. If that's the case, it won't be an emergency, and maybe they'll be more motivated to discuss with me a proper replacement, or decide that, you know what, we don't have enough cases to justify that. We'll just farm it out to a contractor and let somebody else deal with it. So you could sit there and second guess what your customers are going to do all day. It's really a waste of time because it's not going to change anything. I have to worry about what I need to do and what I need to do to help my customers. And when things like this happen, it gets a little frustrating. And what's worse is when you have 2 or 3 customers do this to you at the same time. So I'm being grateful that I only had this one that's been holding me up. I've had customers leave machines with me for 6 and 8 months. It's just ridiculous. And the fact that they think I still have it, that they fully expect to be able to pick it up as though they dropped it off yesterday, that is sometimes the world we live in. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is if you're thinking about becoming a technician, I want you to understand that the actual repair of the machine, the actual technical part of it, is less than 50% of being a self-employed computer tech, because you have to deal with marketing, you got to deal with the bills, you got to deal with talking to the customers and negotiating with the customers and finding the work. The doing the work part is only half of it. And then you get in situations like this where sometimes you just sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and nothing happens. And if you continue to do that, you'll be buried under computers that you are technically responsible for, unless you had your client sign a waiver, which a lot of shops will do that. They'll say, look, if you drop a machine off here, after 90 days, if you haven't picked it up, it's ours. You need to sign that paper. And then when the customer comes back in 6 months, then you have a big fight. Well, you signed it. They'll say, well, I didn't know that's what it said. And then the potential lawsuits and all kinds of things happen. So to protect yourself when you're in business, sometimes you're forced to make decisions on behalf of your customers if your customers can't make them. And the way I justify it is simply not billing them for it. I just do the bare minimum, give it back to them. And if it was a client I never knew before, I wouldn't have gone through this much effort. But because I've known the client more than 10 years, we'll just chalk it up as marketing, and it's worth it to me to get it out. I guess that's payment in and of itself. So that's what's going on with that. Let's see what's going on in the chat real quick. If people are going to be rude, they're going to get kicked out. We've talked about this before. I'm seriously getting real sick of the entitlement from a small percentage of the viewers that seem to think that they can tell me what to do, or tell me I don't know how to do it, or demand or question what I'm doing. I don't need viewers like that. So most of you are great, and I appreciate you, but there's a couple in there that are just really annoying. I'm probably going to have to get an admin in here to get this under control, because it seems like it kind of comes and goes in waves, where we get a bunch of trolls all at once, and then we have none for a long time. So just kind of looking through I appreciate the offers for you guys to moderate the chat, but I don't know you. So if I don't know you, I'm not going to just hand over moderation of my chat room to you. I mean, I appreciate the offer, but you can understand why, right? Is it bad to use Molex to SATA cables? No, there's nothing wrong with it. Other than it just kind of looks ugly. And most modern computers won't use the Molex cables at all. This is an older case. The fan controller requires the Molex. And the person that built it ran one power cable strictly for the Molex connector, and then ran another power cable strictly for the optical drive. And it's like, why would you run two cables if you can just run one and use an adapter to change the Molex into SATA? Which is ultimately what I did, which is why there's an extra cable now left over, which means that's great for adding more things. It also means that the cable management looks a lot better. It's easier to work on. It's just common sense. I prefer not to use the adapters. I prefer that everything is modern. But when you're dealing with older equipment, adapters, that's why those adapters exist. There's nothing wrong with using those adapters. What do I do if my power supply failed? You replace your power supply, and you hope it didn't take any of your other components out with it. How are you going to know that? Well, that's where it's tough to sometimes be your own tech if you don't have all the tools you need for proper diagnosing. Because you can end up building a whole other computer in spare parts. But if it's just a power supply, it's pretty cheap and easy to replace it, and ideally you'll be back up and running again. What did the worst customer you've ever had do to you? I think there's been quite a few that have done some nasty things. People that said, feel sorry for me because I don't have any money. Let me give you a little bit of what I owe you now, and let me take the computer so I can get my job done, so I can get paid, and I'll pay you the rest. There were two people who did that. They don't know each other. They were separated by probably a year between jobs. And I thought to myself, this is something Best Buy would never do. This is something no big corporation would ever do. So I'm going to do it. And neither person ever paid me what they owed me. They said, I'll give you this much, and I'll pick up the computer, and I'll pay you the rest. I'll mail you a check. And I'm not one of those people that says that and doesn't follow through. I'm not that kind of person. I really need to do my job so I can get my check so that I can pay you. Okay. And in both cases that I did that, made that exception, neither person ever paid me. And I said, well, that's fine. You know what? You have no warranty, and I'll never work on your system again. So sometimes it actually saves you money in the long run. But I shouldn't have done it. Now I know why Best Buy and other large corporations don't do that. You pay it in full or you don't get the computer. And that's why. And being a nice person will often will have people take advantage of you. But no one can take advantage of you unless you permit it. So chalk it up as a lesson learned and move on. What do you think of the i9 launch? The i9 and the Threadripper are really for folks who need a lot of cores. The vast majority of people don't need them. I'd say 90% or more of computer users out there do not need more than 2 or 4 cores. So they're very specialty, high-end chips designed for a very specific purpose. And I suppose what they do very well. But I think for most people, it's almost like having a Land Rover 4x4. Most people who own those never take them off city roads. What's the point? Let's see what else we have going on here in the chat. Somebody's looking for some technical support. I would suggest you go to the Facebook fan page if you're having a computer problem, and on the Facebook fan page there are volunteers to help you, or you can go to a website called techguy, GUI.org. It's a nonprofit organization where you can ask for technical support questions regarding why your computer doesn't boot, or how to diagnose, or how to install Windows, anything computer related. Either of those are great resources. I'm sorry guys, I'll answer basic questions, but we talk about people taking advantage. I'm not, as much as I enjoy sharing my knowledge, we're crossing a line when you're asking me specifically to diagnose your computer tech issue for free. I don't work for you. I think it's a little rude. I think it's a little inconsiderate that your problem's more important than everybody else's. The reason the Facebook fan page exists is because these complete strangers from all over the world contact me asking me for free help. And I feel as though doing the videos is very time consuming. It's cost quite a bit of money, and I'm giving you the information for free. So for people to go, that's not enough, I want more, and often demand more and start getting rude when they don't get the help they demand, that they're demanding for free, it goes right back to, here we go, trying to help somebody out and be a nice person, comes back to haunt you and create a bad situation. So for the most part, unless you're a paying customer, I'm going to direct any support over to either the Facebook fan page or over to techguy.org. It's not the way I want the world to be, guys. This is a process that started with me offering help for free. And after people started getting nasty and nastier and nastier because they weren't getting replies fast enough, they weren't getting the answers they wanted to hear, and they act as though they're paying for it. And if you're not paying for it, you don't deserve anything. So I hope that these videos and the information that I provide are a catalyst for you to pursue further education if it's something that interests you. And if you have a basic technical question, of course, I'm more than happy to answer that, But when it comes to help me specifically with my PC, that's what customers pay me for. That's not something I do for free. And if I did it for free, I wouldn't have the ability to make these videos because I wouldn't have a house, I wouldn't have an office, I wouldn't have electricity. So I hope you do understand it's not about being mean or being a jerk. It's just that the only people that ever complain to me are the people that get work for free. The people who pay for the work never complain. So I won't say never. Well, they very rarely complain. The vast majority of complaints come from complete strangers on the internet that are self-entitled to free support, or they don't like the way I do things and they want to argue with me, and I just don't participate in that. I've got other things to do with my time. I've got paying customers waiting for me, and I need to prioritize paying customers. I have to. I don't have a choice. I have to keep the lights on. So I think sometimes people, they're so sort of self-centered on their problem, they fail to have consideration for what they're asking somebody else to do. So I guess for me, consideration and politeness has always been very important to me. But it's also been important to me to treat people the way that they're treating me. So if somebody's being particularly nasty to me, I'm typically nasty back to them. But honestly, even that gets tiring. So let's see. What is the outcome with lynda.com? Nothing. There is no outcome to lynda.com. They continue to tell people that write in to complain to them that the matter's been settled, but the matter has not been settled. Basically, lynda.com attacked me, and then they said, well, we stopped attacking them, so the matter's settled. Well, no. There should be an apology. There should be an explanation as to why the attack happened, and a reassurance as to what changes are going to happen at lynda.com to prevent that from happening to myself or to anybody else ever again. And lynda.com has not provided any of that. So I am speaking with an attorney on it. It's an anti-competitive business practice, among other charges we're considering. It is fraudulent that they made a claim against material that they did not own the copyright to. They have a license to it, but I have a license to Windows. It doesn't mean I own the copyright to Windows. This is all pretty basic stuff. I don't really want to take it to court, but these corporations, they just stop talking to you and they just kind of create their own reality and they go, well, this is how it is. And that's not how it is. It's just not how it is. So they kind of force your hand. They force you to take legal action if you want to pursue it. Now, I have other things better to do with my time than to go to court and take on lynda.com, which is ultimately Microsoft. And the truth of the matter is, no matter how wrong it is, they're going to have a lot more lawyers that have a lot more time and a lot more money to spend to defend themselves than I do. I think it's a pretty strong and clear case, but everybody who goes to court thinks that. Most people do. So I'm talking about it, about a potential litigation, but I just haven't made up my mind right now. I am really hoping for a class action, but we'll just have to wait and see what lynda.com's behavior is in the future, whether or not it's deserving of class action or whether or not lynda.com has made the change they need to make to prevent from entering videos that they are licensing from other people fraudulently as their own. That's illegal. So we'll see how that goes. What do I think about the Raspberry Pi line of PCs? Well, the Raspberry Pi is not a PC, but they're great for hobbyists. People are jerks. Well, people are great and people are jerks, right? People are people, and for whatever reason, maybe somebody's having a bad day, maybe somebody's more focused on the amount of money they make versus how they treat people. I'm somebody, I really don't care about money outside of paying my bills. I'm not looking to have my own private island or anything like that. And I think it's more important that what I leave behind after I'm dead and gone is something that hopefully made the world a little better, help people become a little more self-empowered. That's just important to me. For other people, it's how much money can I get before I die, and then when they die, the money stays and they go. So I don't really understand that. Doesn't really make sense to me. I've never quite understood that concept of let me hoard as much money and make as much money by every means possible, rip people off, whatever I got to do to step on people's backs, to have the biggest pile of money, and then I die and the money stays behind. I don't, my brain can't process that logic. So, not to mention that when you have a lot, you're more likely to be sued or to have people try and take from you. One of the advantages of having nothing is there's nothing for anybody to steal. That's a terribly pessimistic way to look at it. I'm just not a very materialistic person. I like my car, but even that's reasonable. It's not, it's not an Aston Martin or a Ferrari or anything like that. I don't even desire that. Even if I could afford it, I wouldn't want it. It's just, it's not practical. I'm a practical person. What else do we have in the chat? Any idea on what to build? I don't know what that says. Let's scroll down a little bit. Any thought about the Corsair One PC? No, I'm not into pre-builds, so I think you should build it yourself. When am I going to teach dogs to build the computers? I'm just trying to teach the dog to hand me the tools. I think that would be pretty cool. But they're so hot right now. Not sure what happened with the stream right there. We had a little hiccup. This heat plays some weird tricks on electronics. I think it has to do with a lot of people are drawing power from the power company, and like the reason the power went out yesterday is there was a line, that underground line that broke. That was the hottest day of the year yesterday. Now today is. And tomorrow will probably be hotter than today. So it puts a bigger demand. So if that cable was kind of flaky to begin with, and now all this power is being drawn from it, then it breaks the cable. They have to come out and replace the cable. And it affected about 1,200 people. But I think I was on the outskirts of it, and when they switched power over to a different, I can't think of the name. I used to work for the power company, substation. When they switch over to a different substation, there's often a flicker, and I think that's what I experienced yesterday that caused my AC unit to freak out. All right. Just kind of looking, again, before we wrap this up, I'm just looking through the chat. We're starting to lose some light. You'll see it's starting to get dark in here. Do you not have any UPS in your house? What I have, no, I don't like UPSs because the batteries in them go out about every 2 to 3 years on average. The battery has to be replaced, and you can't just take the battery and throw it in the garbage. You've got to go take it to a recycling center. They're big, they're heavy, and they're expensive. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy a new UPS. So what ends up happening is the UPS, if you're not, you got to label the UPS, right? This is the date I put it in service, so you know when to change the battery. But very few people do that. Instead, what they end up doing is I get a call. It says my computer's randomly restarting. And first thing I look for is if they have a UPS in an office. When did you put the UPS in? I don't know. Has it been more than 2 years? I don't know. Well, let's take the UPS out of the equation and just plug the computer right in the wall. Call me back if the problem still happens. Most of the time, that solves the problem. So the irony is that people are putting in the UPSs to avoid that very scenario. When a failing battery in a UPS creates that very scenario, it does it to servers, it does it to workstations. So you have to say, look, if you want to continue to use the UPS, we need to put a label on here, and we have to replace these batteries every 2 to 3 years, whether you think they need it or not. And you're going to spend about let's call it $100 per box. And if you're a big office, you got 20 boxes, you're going to be spending $2,000 every 2 to 3 years. And they go, well, I don't want to spend that kind of money. You go, well, then continue to do what you're doing. And then when your batteries start to go, you start having these problems that was the whole reason you bought the UPS to avoid. And now the UPS is creating those problems. So instead, what I do is I put a surge protector into the breaker box so that all the power coming into the house is filtered. And if there is a power spike where power comes in, that surge protector will give its life. So they're kind of a one-time use deal. Once that thing blows, my understanding is it'll still let power come through after it dies. So it's not like the whole building goes without power. But there'll be a big red light on it. And that red light means you got to replace me. Because people will tell you need, surge protection for your appliances, you need surge protection for your television, you need surge protection for your computer. That's all true. When you talk about UPSs, depending on the UPS, you are getting the surge protection, but a lot of customers don't quite understand, obviously the older the UPS gets, the less battery life you have. So if you bought it brand new and it can give you 20 minutes of time, now you may only have 10 minutes a couple years later, maybe down to 30 seconds if you continue to ignore it, and then it just starts freaking out and causing things to reset. So not a fan of UPSs. Here in Arizona anyway, in Phoenix, we don't have power outages often enough to justify it. If we were somewhere where we had constant power outages, I'd say half dozen or more a year, UPS would be something to consider. But I think more importantly, you'd be better off with a generator. At least that way you don't have to keep replacing things. So I like to set up my clients with things that when we put a process in place that we're not constantly having to spend money to maintain it. Ideally, we put a solution in that just takes care of it indefinitely. And that's what a generator would do in an office rather than buying 20 UPSs. Just buy a generator, have it installed. And if you lose power that way, just do that. And, surge protectors will do you just fine. And in fact, computer components are so cheap now, who even cares? You blow a motherboard, they're not that expensive to replace. You're probably going to blow a power supply. It's $40 to $100 to replace a power supply. It's pretty quick. Why would you spend $200 every 2 or 3 years on a brand new UPS, or even $100 on a brand new UPS to protect a $40 power supply? Doesn't make sense to me, but I guess it depends on the critical nature of the machine you're trying to protect. So I did use UPSs for a while, and as I found over time that the UPSs were the source of more problems. Very many, how can I say this? A lot. The UPSs created 12 problems, and without the UPS I had 1 problem in the same amount of time, same time period. So I'm just done with UPSs. I don't recommend them, I don't use them. If a client wants one, I'll install it and I'll maintain it and I'll put a label on it, and I let the client know every 2 to 3 years we got to change the UPS or the battery. That's it. If the client doesn't want to do it, that's fine. I'll still do the work, and they can just keep calling me when they have problems, and I'll continue to bill them every single time that UPS causes a problem. After the first time, they would have already bought, they could, for what it cost them to pay for me to come out to fix the problem, that would have already bought them a new UPS. So after it happens 5 or 6 times, they could have bought 5 or 6 UPSs. And I make sure the client knows this. Doesn't bother me. You want me to come out 5 or 6 times to keep fixing the same problem? But I'm not going to lead the customer on and lie to them and say, oh, well, there you go, you're fixed. I let the customer know, if you want to avoid these kinds of emergencies in the future, either get rid of the UPS and don't use it, or replace it. Have you ever had a customer's computer die because of a lightning strike? Yes, we have a lot of lightning strikes in Arizona. I've had computers die not just from a lightning strike going through power, but a lightning strike affecting the Ethernet connection and killing the entire computer through the Ethernet. I've also seen it done through phone lines that were plugged in back in the days when we used dial-up modems. Any way power can get in, it can short out. Can someone still inquire about builds? Yes. Yeah. Again, for that kind of information, you go to the Facebook fan page, you can ask there, and the information will be provided to you there. The builds are all done for within the USA only. I can't ship any computers outside of the USA. Carrie, do you have any tips for someone trying to get into the PC hardware industry or starting a computer repair business? Yes, it's all at techvets.com. The TechVets podcast is all about that, and I would recommend you listen to those. They're free. It's an audio podcast. It's at tech-vets.com. Oh, I guess the dog showed up, did he? I got Jimmy here at my feet. These boys are hot. They are probably miserable, especially Lyle with all his hair. Yeah, if you're in the continental United States, it's fine. I'm happy to build a computer for you. What happened to the Train PC? The Train PC sits in a room. It was never finished because it's not for any customers. It was for me. And I'm so busy between trying to make videos and trying to help customers and run a business that anything that I need has to wait. So when something happens like the AC goes out in my house, then that takes priority and everybody has to wait until that problem gets fixed. And then last week the AC went out in my car and I spent a day working on that. I got the AC working again, thank goodness. So I've had 2 AC problems in the last 8 days, and those, you just have to prioritize, as you get older and things start piling up, you have to prioritize what's important and what's going to get your time. It kills me to do this, to take the time for this, knowing I'm not making any money on it. When I've got other builds, like the Xenos build is waiting, but I got to get it out of here. If I don't do it now, it'll just continue to sit, and eventually I'll forget who it belongs to, or some parts will go missing. I don't even know. And I could knock it over, or something could happen, and then I have to replace it because I'm the one responsible for it. So that's why things move up and down the priority list. And the Train PC hasn't even been powered on. I mean, talking about a waste of money. Bought all those parts, started building it, and then just got pulled away. So one of these days, I suppose I'll finish it. I almost feel like I need to take it apart and start over again. I don't need it. It was just something to do for fun, and so it's not a high priority for me. But I still have it. It's still in the same condition it was in. I mean, it's all put together as far as all the panels and screws, so I wouldn't lose anything. But it's not all wired up. The wiring was never finished, and the optical drive was never installed. I have it in a box somewhere. When a customer's waiting, I have to, as long as customers are lining up waiting, and they're waiting, there's a part of me that goes, wouldn't it be great if I got through all the waiting customers and I didn't have any more waiting? And then I think, well, then what would I do to make money if I was all caught up? What would I do? Suppose I could do the Train PC, but how would I generate money that I would need to continue to keep the lights on and pay for all this stuff that you guys are being able to watch for free? How would I do that? So it's a tough place to be, right? If I had the time to do it, then I wouldn't have the money to do it. If I had the money to do it, then I don't have the time to do it. But hopefully some opportunity will open up, and it's just a project for fun. Do I recommend any AMD cards? I don't really care if a system is Intel or AMD. It makes no difference to me unless I'm the one who has to support it. So when I'm building a machine or repairing a machine for a client, it's important to me to select parts that I know I can count on that aren't going to kill my business and warranty issues. I have to do the labor at my cost. I'm eating that. Customer's going to be upset. They're down. I mean, they're already going to be upset. I'm going to be upset because I'm going to start losing money. There's not a lot of money to be made in selling a computer. And because the issues I've seen from AMD, both driver-related on their graphics cards and reliability issues on motherboards that use AMD processors, not the processors themselves, but on the motherboards and chipsets, I've veered away from them. If a customer wants an AMD system, I'm happy to build one. It makes no difference to me. Again, it's as long as we use the manufacturers that I know and trust, I have no problem with it. It's not as though I don't like AMD. It's not like that. It's just it's about establishing a level of trust in a company that I can put my name on it. Remember, when a customer is buying a machine from me or having me repair a machine, they're paying me. They often don't know what they've got. They don't know what a Gigabyte is. They don't know what an Asus. Those names mean nothing to the average customer. And many folks like you that are watching and learning from this want to learn how to fix your own. You don't want to bring it to a guy like me. You want to do it yourself. And so if you're somebody who's going to do it yourself, then that kind of information matters to you. But to the consumer, all they know is, I paid Carrie to fix it and it's broken again. Or I paid Gary to build me a new one and it didn't last 2 months. So I can't go buy it would be foolish for me to go and buy some brand new hardware that just came out from a company that their previous hardware has kind of left me hanging and go, well, look, I don't want to seem biased, so I want to play fair and I'll give AMD a shot. That's giving my business, that's putting my business at risk. It's not just me building a computer for myself. It's me building it for somebody else and being held accountable and liable for it for the entire life of that computer. If that computer ever has a problem, hopefully they call me. I want that customer to keep coming back. But I don't want them to keep coming back for repairs. I want them to keep coming back to buy more computers or upgrades. So until the new Ryzen processors have been out, I'd say about a year, I can't recommend them until I have an idea of how reliable the whole system is, and not just the processor, but the chipset and the motherboard makers. And as far as graphics cards go, I really don't care about the graphics cards. It doesn't matter to me if you want an AMD or an NVIDIA, but I really like EVGA for the support, and EVGA makes NVIDIA cards, so that's what I use. And I haven't had to RMA one ever, never. So when I sell it to a customer, I know that's a done deal. Customer's going to be happy, I'm going to be happy. I have customers reach out to me, they go, remember me? And I go, no, I have no idea who you are. Well, you sold me a computer 10 years ago, but it's running pretty slow now, and I'm thinking I need a new one. I get those kind of calls frequently. And I'm like, well, it's great, I'm happy to help you. Let's build you a new machine. And we go and rebuild the same thing again. We stick with certain manufacturers. It costs just a tiny bit more, not much. Maybe costs, I don't know, 10%, maybe not even 10%, maybe 8% more to get really good quality components. And the customers are set for years and years and years. And that's why I have customers that have been with me for so long, because they trust when they're going to buy a computer, they don't know what parts to buy. They're putting their trust in me to select the right parts for them. And that means the parts are going to meet their needs, be in their budget, and will be very reliable. I don't take that lightly. If I took it lightly, I'd be like, oh, here's the latest, greatest thing. Let's make you a guinea pig and see how it works. I wouldn't do that to my clients. So that's why you don't see the Ryzen. That's why you don't see the latest. You don't see any VR stuff from me. What's anybody going to do with VR? There's no real application for it for the general public. It's just a gimmick. And until there's a killer app, I have no interest in it. There are specialty applications in industry where VR is useful, but overall there's no killer app where people are like, I got to have VR. VR is a buzzword, and people got to have the latest and greatest, even though what do you do with it when you've got it? Use it for a couple days, get bored of it, and put it down. And the technology continues to improve, so it's not even a perfected technology yet. There's no real standards yet, and it costs a lot of money. When you buy hardware that's brand new, that's the most you're ever going to pay for it. So not only are you taking on the added risk of discovering what the problems are and reliability issues, but you're also paying the most amount of money for it. And when you're somebody who's building a computer for yourself, that's well and good. But when you build it for somebody else and they're paying you to build it and you're going to be held accountable for it for every single day until it's replaced, out of warranty, they're going to call you. You got to think about, how do I sustain my business? If I'm doing constant warranty work and I'm not getting paid, I still have an electric bill to pay. I still have an internet bill to pay. I still have a cell phone bill to pay. I still have a car payment, insurance, and a house payment, and da-da-da-da-da-da. How do you take care of things for free and at the same time make money? So there are people that like to throw around, here's another buzzword, a lot of people like to throw around the word fanboy. That's an interesting term to me because it suggests that you're ignorant, that you will blindly follow a manufacturer. Because I run a business, I'll explain as I have the reasons why I use the manufacturers that I use. It has nothing to do with anything other than value for the dollar. And when value for the dollar changes, then my business follows that change. But it's got to be proven. It can't be a guess. It's got to be entered in very lightly because I have a small business. And it doesn't take a lot to take a small business out of business. If you're a large corporation with shareholders, it's the shareholders' money you're losing, not your own. So, take for example, Amazon just bought Whole Foods grocery stores. And in 20 minutes, because of that sale, Jeff Bezos, the chairman over at the CEO at Amazon, made, I don't know, $60 million in 20 minutes. That doesn't happen when you're self-employed. So there's a difference to how businesses operate depending on the size of the business and how people at home and the reasons why people at home do what they do. So the reason somebody building their own computer might select the cheapest possible parts, and when it doesn't work, it's their time and it's their inconvenience. It affects nobody else but them. When you're a small business, you're again accountable and liable for the people that you're helping, at least if you want to stay in business. If you only want to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, and then go bankrupt or shut the doors, that's a different model. I'm not that kind of guy. I intend to have my business as long as possible. It's great to have a lot of money today and to eat well today, but I'm going to want to eat tomorrow, and I'm going to need to eat next month, and I'm going to need to eat next year. So you need to see further ahead into the future and do the right thing to keep your clients coming back to you and seeing a value in what you offer. And as such, there's not as much profit to be made in a one-man operation, so that if you are hit with, like, for example, the capacitor plague that I made a big deal out of back in the early 2000s, that was severely impacting my business, and businesses, the manufacturers that were affected by it, were all denying it. And I was left holding the bag and had to spend money for a problem that I didn't cause, that manufacturers wouldn't admit to in order to keep my clients happy. Now, if this was a large corporation with shareholders, I could spend money more than I'm making, and it comes out of somebody else's pocket, and the business is just fine. So when you hear in the news that a business had a loss, that means they spent more than they made, and it's usually by millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. Where's that money? How do you spend more than you make? Where's that money coming from? It's coming from the shareholders. So 3 different things you got to think about: what a consumer does, what a small business does, and what a corporation does, and the reasons why they're done. And ultimately, who's accountable and who does it affect when things go sideways. So that's why you'll see certain attitudes on the internet that don't take into consideration any other potential circumstance other than the person who's telling you about their circumstance. Like, this is the only one. They're just thinking of themselves. And the reality is there are different circumstances, different conditions that exist depending on the circumstance that will justify what the right thing to do is. It's not as clean cut as going, you always go left or you always go right. It just depends. There's a lot of factors. And that's what bothers me about the free advice on the internet, is a lot of it doesn't take into consideration what your expectations are and what your needs, and there's a lot of things that go into me building a computer for a client. And usually an hour and a half consultation over the phone is what it takes. It's about an average of 90 minutes before I can start suggesting any parts to anybody. And it's just a lot of information I've got to gather. But doing that is an investment that my client is going to be happy with the end result and not call me all upset, pissed off, and potentially file a lawsuit against me. When you're offering advice to somebody on the internet, you don't have that liability. Tell them whatever you want to tell them. And remember, when you're taking advice like that, you got to ask yourself, is it really wise for you to take advice from somebody who has no accountability or liability to the results of you taking their advice? It's a weird world where people will take $2,000 or $3,000 of their hard-earned money and ask somebody else how they should spend it. That's just weird to me. And it's somebody else who they don't even know. It could be some handle on the internet. It could be somebody just playing with you. You don't even know. That's why you're asking for the advice. And they don't ask you all the questions to really give you solid advice. So that's a big, you've heard me, if you've watched my videos in the past, you've seen me talk numerous times about this. It's a really big problem in the industry that exists on the internet, where people think they're helping each other out when they're really causing more problems. And again, we'll go back to what I said in the beginning. The only complaints I get from people, generally, are from the people that I do things for free for. When people pay me, I generally get thank yous. Many more times than not, people are appreciative and have gratitude, and they give me money. So this idea that people go out to the internet to get free advice and then take that advice, what often happens is you never hear from those people again. Like if you look in the forums and Reddit and places like that where somebody's asking for advice on how to build a computer, very rarely do you ever hear back from somebody that says, hey, I built it and I'm happy with it, or hey, the advice you gave me is bad. And it doesn't matter because it won't make any difference whatsoever. The advice in the future won't be improved. And you're the one who made your decision, and it's nobody's fault but your own. So, what about case modding? There's no point in doing case modding anymore. You could pretty much buy a case modded already. In the old days, cases didn't have windows. If you wanted a window, you got out I forget what the saw is called. You got out basically an electric saw, and you measured and cut the hole, and you put the plexiglass and the rubber fitting in, and you made your own case window. These days, you can pretty much buy whatever you want. Unless you're a very artistic person, which I am not, and you're somebody who's really good with, I don't know, painting, taking electronics apart to the smallest little level and painting the pieces and then putting it all back together again. I really admire that quality because it's one I don't have. But it also entails a lot of time. And generally speaking, there's no money to be made from it because the amount of time it would take me to rip apart just a graphics card, break it all down and do its individual pieces, get the paint, primer things, paint them, reassemble them, put it all together, paint the case. There's very few people that are going to pay you what that's worth. So a lot of these projects are projects people are better off doing themselves. Some things like that make sense if you're just somebody in your garage messing around. It's a fun little hobby. It's very difficult to make a living from that. Very few people that want that are willing to pay for it. Most of the people that want an airbrushed case do their own airbrushing. That's been my experience. Most of the people that care about the aesthetics will design their own aesthetics. They won't pay you to do it. So there are exceptions, of course, but running a sustainable business that you can continue to make money every day, when you're taking a project on that's going to take you a long time to complete because of that kind of detail, you have to make up for that financially. And someone's going to say, why am I paying $6,000 for $2,000 worth of parts? Well, because you've got a lot of time. And that's really the issue. So for a hobbyist, it's great fun. But as a business, it's very specialized, very niche. Not a lot of customers out there would be willing to pay for that. Just kind of looking, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm looking at the comments here. It's not a good time right now to buy any graphics. Well, the AMD cards and the NVIDIA cards, the prices are all going up because of cryptocurrency miners. And you can Google that term if you don't know what it means, but they're starting to sort of hoard these cards, and it's causing, supply and demand, it's causing the price to go up. So if you're thinking of buying a graphics card, I would hold off a little while, and hopefully the prices will come back down. There's a surge right now that's happening, and I'm hoping, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm hoping that surge will come back down soon. But this is definitely not a good time to buy a high-end graphics card. You're going to pay about $50 more for it right now. Do a scrapyard wars with Linus. Linus and I don't really talk to each other. So he does his thing, I do my thing, and he's on the opposite side of the continent from me. It's not like we're neighbors. So doing something like that would be virtually impossible. And remember, unlike Linus, I don't make my living on YouTube videos. YouTube videos are something I do on the side for fun. I enjoy doing them. My primary source of income is working as a real computer technician, helping real customers, doing real builds, showing real repairs. Everything that you see is real. There are no sponsors on my channel. There never have been. And I won't say there never will be, but the minute you get sponsors, it starts steering the direction of what the sponsor wants versus what you want to do, and you lose a bit of creative freedom. I'm not going to jump into a commercial in the middle of my video like Linus does. I'm not going to put him down for that. That's what happens. You don't see me do that. You see him do that. I don't want to do that. Building a computer at a scrapyard wars for no other purpose other than to compete against somebody else is pointless. I want to help real people with real problems and solve those problems. That's what I want to do. I want to do things that matter. If somebody's in a position that, it's a charity of some sort, and they've got a bunch of computers that were donated and they want to make one good one out of the parts, that'd be kind of fun. That's something that means something at the end of the day. Just to do something because you can in some sort of competition to prove who's better, that's not important to me. It's just I don't care. If somebody wants to say they're better than me, good, be better than me. Someone wants to say they're smarter than me, be smart. I don't care. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. People either appreciate the value of what I bring to the table or they don't, and I'm not going to change their mind, and I'm not going to waste the effort in making that attempt. So I want to watch a guy have his PC out in the rain and see what happens. Okay, do it. Why don't you do it? If that's what you want to see, why don't you do it? Be realistic. If Coke would sponsor you, you would jump to get that sponsorship. You're absolutely right, I would, because Coke is not a technology company. So they wouldn't tell me how to make my videos other than family friendly. They wouldn't tell me anything other than maybe show the Coke a little more prominently or mention Coke a few more times, but they won't tell me that I can't say this about a case or I can't say that about a part. So on the other hand, I know that I think Coke is a good value for what it is. It's not it's certainly not healthy, but it's not a product like tobacco or alcohol. And it's available around the world. And I don't have any problem endorsing that. But I'm not going to endorse razors, shaving razors. I'm not going to endorse, because there's other things that sponsors could come in that are non-tech related. But then you wonder, well, who is this really appealing to? Is this appealing to my female viewers? Is this appealing to my viewers in other countries? Who's this ad for? So with something like Coca-Cola, it's available worldwide, it's well known, and it's something people have anyway, right? I'm not ripping anybody off. I'm not being a shill. I have no problem ethically or morally with that. So when you start promoting other technology, it can interfere. Like, what if I want to do a review on, antivirus? And let's say Malwarebytes gives me a sponsorship. How can I say anything critical of Malwarebytes, and how can I suggest anything's better than Malwarebytes while they're sponsoring me? Because if you were them, would you continue to sponsor me? Why would you give me money to suggest another product other than, it doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? So by not having those technical sponsorships, I'm free to be honest. And it's interesting because there's people online that are absolute conspiracy theorists, and it's interesting to me that when I talk critically of a product, people are like, yeah, you tell them. But when I tell people I like a product, they're like, oh, well, obviously you're paid by ASUS because you use the parts you talk about. No, I'm telling you I run a shop. These are the parts I use, and this is why, because I need to run a sustainable shop. This company has earned my loyalty. But it's interesting that when you're positive, and this says something about the world we live in today, that when you say something positive about a company or a product, you're a sellout. But when you're critical of it, you're praised. And that's very interesting that people are so paranoid and untrustworthy in general that they'll be so quick to judge you despite the fact they paid nothing for the information and despite the fact they have no evidence to back up their conclusion. They will use their imagination, come up with something in their brain that's completely unrelated to reality, and then file false accusations publicly at you on your own channel in your own house. So by not having any sponsorships, I can safely tell all those people to go away. They're all, I don't want to say crazy, but we'll definitely say not sane. So that way, as a viewer, you know that when I'm giving you a piece of advice, I'm not being manipulated in any way by any outside entity to say anything other than what I honestly feel. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but at least you can know it's honest. And I guess there's such a lack of honesty in the world today that when people hear it, they don't believe when they're given the truth without any motive, any hidden agenda, people often don't know how to react to it. They just it can't possibly be the truth. There must be some hidden catch. There must be something they're missing, and they'll just file out accusations publicly that are completely unbiased. And that's how you got guys like Alex Jones and stuff, InfoWars. Just the limits are their imagination, and oftentimes with no evidence or misinterpreted and unverified evidence. So I don't want to be that guy. I never want to be that guy. I'd rather say nothing than be told what to say. Linus is sponsored by Intel, never does AMD stuff. Well, see, now that's a good example. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what they're saying in the chat. I'm not sponsored by Intel, and all you see is Intel. So, what does that tell you? Will we ever meet your wife? No, my wife's not part of this. My business life and my private life are two entirely different things. And, I'll show you the boys, the dogs. I'll share them with you. But, no, I like to keep those things separate. My wife has nothing to do with computers or electronics. She's not a technical person. And it's a great break for me to get away from that. When I spend time with her, we're doing anything but computers and electronics. We're just being normal. And for somebody who does what I do, there's not enough normal in my life. So I'm not going to bring her into this world. I'm not going to do that to her. Do I like cats? Cats are great when they're somebody else's pet. I wouldn't want one as a pet, but I love all animals. Animals are great. I like animals better than people. What do I think of rack-mounted cases? They're great if you have a rack. You buy what you need. If you don't need a rack-mounted case, don't buy a rack-mounted case. I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. If you have a rack, you don't have any choice. You're going to have to put a rack-mounted case in it. If you don't have a rack, it does you no good to have a rack-mounted case. All right, guys, what do we got going on here? Have I missed anything else? Do you ever build rack mount servers? No, I don't. The channel that you see here is for average, ordinary, everyday consumers. This is not a business channel. Businesses generally buy servers and have full-time support for those servers. I don't have full-time support for any of my clients. My clients call me as needed. The minute I start doing server work, I might as well just go work for that company directly because they're going to require a lot of my time. And I don't like putting all my eggs in one basket like that. The way my business is set up now, clients can come and go and it doesn't impact my income. If any single client monopolized my time, then that client could start dictating to me how much money they were going to pay me, and I'd have to accept it because it would be that or nothing. So I like to spread out my work amongst a number of different clients and different types of clients so that I can continue to have an ongoing revenue stream that is not dependent on any particular industry doing well or any particular client doing well, and it prevents the client from monopolizing me and then dictating to me what I'm going to do, which then I lose my independence being self-employed. And at that point, I might as well just go work for somebody if that's what I'm going to do. I mean, the whole benefit of being self-employed is to be able to take on the work you want to take on and turn away work you want to turn away. The minute a client starts telling you what you're going to do, you're not self-employed anymore. You know, we'll talk about this word sellout for a minute. There's nothing wrong with somebody wanting to make money in an ethical, moral way. I have no problem with the way the vast majority of technical YouTube channels, whether it's Paul's Hardware or Linus Tech Tips, I have no problem with these guys getting sponsorships. All I'm doing is making you guys aware that that's not what's happening here, because I think you guys aren't used to that. You don't know how to treat this channel when I'm being honest and I'm being direct, and you think I must have a sponsorship to say something positive, or you think that there's some hidden agenda because you're bombarded by YouTube channels, people that make YouTube videos for a living, and what they're making is more entertainment than it is really useful educational information, with exceptions. You know, places like Khan Academy, for example, is all about the education. But when we talk about the technical channels, a lot of the technical channels are just there to give you a brief review. They're not very in-depth. They don't come back after 2 or 3 years and tell you how the machine's holding up or what problems they've experienced, and they very rarely even use the hardware they recommend. So I don't do any of that. What I do is completely different. What I do is pure honesty. It's just a matter of saying, this is some work I've got to do. I'm going to turn the camera on and show you how it's done. If you're thinking of being a computer tech, this is the kind of work you can look forward to doing, the kind of situations that I share with you to best prepare you if that's the right line of work for you. And that way you know what to expect. There's nothing in it for me other than, you know, a few pennies I make from YouTube. And just to clarify that, when you guys watch a video, on average, YouTube will pay the creator about 1/4 of 1 penny for each view. But wait a minute, that's not it. YouTube then shares that 1/4 of a penny with you. YouTube says, all right, you earned 1/4 of a penny, and we're going to take 45% of it, and we'll give you 55% of it. So when an individual viewer contacts me and says, it starts making demands because I subscribe to you, and you're going to answer my question, I go away. And they go, well, how can you treat your viewers like that? I go, you're worth 55% of 1/4 of a penny to me. So, you know, it's nice when people appreciate the videos and they say thank you and they have kind things. But when people start getting demanding, they are often shocked at my attitude when I tell them to go away. They act as though we're doing you a favor by watching your videos. And it's a shocking thing. Growing up you know, I was a teenager in the 1980s. And when somebody gave you something and you accepted it, you said, thank you. You didn't say, well, that's not enough, give me more. I demand you give me more, or I won't take it. So that's what it feels like. So maybe kind of a generational thing here based on how I grew up and how people are growing up today and the technology and you know, things that are available so much cheaper today than they were back in the day, if you will. Not that it was that long ago, but maybe to some of you it does seem like a long time ago. Maybe you weren't born back then and that seems like a crazy long time ago. To me, it was just a few years ago. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. And there's kind of a shift. And people act as though they're entitled to something that they haven't paid for or invested in. And I don't need that stress or aggravation. I would rather those people went away, and however much money I would have made from them from watching my videos, you know, hey, it might add up to 20 cents. If they watch every video, I might make 20 cents over the course of maybe a month, let's say, from one viewer. If they're really dedicated and they don't have an ad blocker, I might make 20 cents. So to really make money on YouTube, you need to have lots and lots of viewers. And the way you're going to get lots and lots of viewers is you have to spend a lot of time putting your feeds out to social media, Facebook, encouraging people to share, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter. There's a lot of administration, a lot of stuff happens behind the scenes on these channels you may not realize. People have full-time jobs to do nothing but promote the videos. Get it over on BuzzFeed, send it over here, send it over there. Hope somebody picks it up. Somebody like CNN picks up your video. Boom, your subscribers go up. The money can flood in. Then you have somebody full-time that's calling up sponsors. Nothing but full-time job, just all you do all day. Try and make a deal with a sponsor. That's somebody's full-time job for some of these YouTube channels. I'm just one guy. I don't have a camera operator. I don't have an editor. I don't have a script writer. I don't have a sound engineer. I don't have a marketing person. I don't have an administrator. I don't have somebody to create thumbnails for me for my YouTube videos and write the descriptions and put all the links to all the products and then put the links over, put the video links onto different websites and go to Reddit and participate in conversations and go, hey, go check out my videos. If I did all that, subscriber numbers will go up. So there's a business model to it if you really want to pursue that as a business model. Obviously, I don't. I haven't done it yet. I'd like things to be a little more organic and a little more honest. I'd like to have subscribers come to me without me having to reach out. But the problem is, how do people know I exist unless they're specifically searching for the topics that I talk about? And even then, other videos will come up besides mine. So most of you have found me simply by accident. Most of you have not found me through discussions of Reddit or links on websites. In fact, if you want to tell me how you found me, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm fairly certain 95% of you or greater just stumbled on my videos. And it's a tough way to get subscribers. I've got, 160,000 subscribers after 5 years? I mean, that's only 20,000 a year. For me to hit 1 million, it's going to take quite a long time. When you hit that 1 million subscriber mark, or even if you start getting close to it, then you can think about doing YouTube full time. You can actually hire people to help you and try and generate more money. It's a different beast. I do YouTube for fun. It's not a job. Somebody says, stumbled on you, found you when I was looking for PC builds. Somebody found me on the Newegg build, which is great. One of the reasons why I did it. Somebody else said they stumbled on me. Somebody did a YouTube search. So that's what I'm saying. One of the best things that can happen to a video is to be featured in a really popular website, whether that's CNN.com or Huffington Post or, regardless if you agree with the politics or any of that other nonsense. To have that exposure has a lot of value. Or, you could spend a lot of money on paying for ads that play before videos or play in Facebook. You can pay for ads. But it'll cost, so I already experimented with this. It cost me $35 to gain 1,400 subscribers. And if each of those subscribers watches the one video that the ad was for, and I earn 55% of 1/4 of 1 penny, it means I'm spending $35 to make $3. How does that make any sense? So the hope is that it just grows organically, just naturally. People just share the links with their friends, tell their friends about it, and it just starts to grow. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, it's fine. It's fine. It'll be what it'll be. I certainly would like it if the channel had a bigger audience, but I have no issues. It's not like I have a tiny audience now. I have a respectable size audience, and like I said, I appreciate my audience, at least the ones that, the vast majority of them that appreciate the content and aren't critical of me and mean and nasty and want to spit venom at. So obviously, when you have more subscribers, you have more of the trolls. You're more of a target publicly. So I'm not really diving after that huge subscriber number because it comes at a cost. And if it happens, I'll let it happen, but I'm not going out of my way to make it happen. I found your channel by chance, started watching random computer repair videos and came across one of the leaf blower videos. Someone says I should have listened to your video about not cheaping out on a power supply because I had to buy another one. The Corsair recommendation is the best, still works many years later. I enjoy your 10-hour video marathon. It's like bedtime stories with Uncle Gary. That's great, I'm glad. That tickles me, I love that. Can you explain what a managed switch is and recommend manufacturer? You do a live build with Brian or Brightech. I'd love to go to England and do a live build with Brian over at Brightech. That would be awesome. But you guys got to consider, where does the money come to pay for this? So if you're like me and you're self-employed and you want to take a trip to England, let's say, you've got to make sure your passport's in order, and that's going to cost some money. You got to buy the plane ticket. Plane ticket's about round trip, probably about $1,800. Then, assuming Brian has everything to build the computer already, and he has made the investment of however many British pounds that costs, and he's got all the equipment that I don't have to bring, who's going to do all the work for my clients that have problems while I'm gone? So my client calls and says, Kerry, we're having a problem with our server. We need you over here. And I go, sorry, I'm 5,000 miles away in Britain. What do I do? So not only am I not making money, but I'm spending it, and further, I might be upsetting customers. So one of the issues with being self-employed is being able to take vacation. And I haven't had a real vacation in about 4 or 5 years. And when I mean real, I mean over a week. I think the longest I've been away is 4 days. But I mean, that's fine. I like it. I would like to travel, but I also, I would hate the idea that one of my customers is down and I can't help them because I'm too far away. Oh, somebody here found me looking for scam videos. Where am I located? I am in Phoenix. Found your channel with the $300 HP desktop. Helped me avoid buying one of those. That's great. So that's why I'm saying the natural, organic way that you folks are finding my videos is how it was intended. Folks like Linus, they do a lot of work behind the scenes to promote their videos to gain more viewers. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just a different business model, and I just want you guys to understand how my channel is different. I don't want to do what other people are already doing. What's the point? It's already being done. As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any other working computer technician that's opening the door of his shop and showing you his repairs and telling you about the dilemmas with customers. In fact, if there are any, I'd like to know about them, because I'd like to watch that channel. It's one of my favorite things is listening to like Podnuts, Podnutz. Podnuts is a free podcast you can download where they talk to computer business owners, both ones that are well established and ones that are brand new and have no idea what they're doing. And they just interview and talk to them and share stories back and forth about problems they've had to solve, whether they're technical problems or social problems. And I love listening to that. I love reality. I'm not so much into wanting to hear fictional stories. I want to hear things that matter. I guess that's my thing. If you say, look, I can tell you a made-up story or I can tell you a real story, I'd much rather hear the real story. I watched The Love Boat today, and now I want to go on a cruise. I remember that show from the 1970s. I was just a kid back then. Come to Wales for a holiday. I will be honest, Wales is on my bucket list. I would love nothing better than to visit Wales. There's something about the Welsh accent. I don't know what it is, but I become mesmerized when I hear somebody speaking with a Welsh accent. I'm just like riveted. I don't know what it is. I just love it. I absolutely love that accent. And I've heard everybody in Wales can sing. Is that true? I love your old school attitude. It's funny to me because my attitude to me is not old school. To you, it's old school. To me, it's how I was raised. It's always been this way. It's never been different. It was what I was taught, and it's what I learned. And the things that you learn when you're younger tend to stay with you your whole life. So as you get older and people start telling you that your attitude or your view is old school, it might strike you as odd because you haven't changed. You've always been the same. it's a weird thing as you get older that you may not be aware of. And it's a, you know, when I do my videos on my YouTube channel, whether I'm talking about computers or talking about life, it's always important for me to be honest and to share information with you guys that I wish somebody would have shared with me. And so part of that is also the idea of getting older, that the strangest thing about, and you generally, no one ever told me anyway, you generally don't hear it, is it happens much sooner than you think. It's very strange. You might look at somebody who's much older than you and think, wow, they're really old. But to that person, they still probably see themselves not too far from you. And you may experience this when you're a kid. It's something I experienced. We talk a little bit about philosophy here. When I was younger, people used to talk to me like a kid. It used to really upset me. And once I started working 40 hours a week, you know, in the business world, it was weird that adults talked to me, like adults that were in their 50s talked to me when I was in my 20s as though we were equal. And I liked that. I thought it was respectful. But it turns out that's not what it is at all. That 50-year-old sees your 25-year-old self and thinks you're my equal because I'm still 25. We're still the same. There's not that rift anymore that used to exist. And one day you look in the mirror and you've got some gray hair, or maybe you're missing some hair, or maybe you're putting on a little weight. Things start to change, and before you know it, you yourself are 50. But you're still feeling like you're the 25-year-old kid, and when you see another 25-year-old kid, you talk to him like you're a 25-year-old kid. It's fascinating the perspective that life puts on you, and for the most part, at least for me, woefully unprepared for it. It's sort of like every day is this, you know, I do the same job with the same attitude. I'm not changing, but I am getting older. We all are. You know, if you look at yourself, if you're 15 now, look at how you were when you were 8, right? You've grown a lot in that time. But when the physical growing stops and you're sort of who you are, it's very interesting. And again, it's fascinating to me because no one ever shared any sort of information or preparation about what it was like to get older, any more than people walking around don't really think about their age. How often do you think about how old you are? Once you're in your 20s, it's not really something you go on thinking about. And it very rarely will until you get really, really old. And when I mean that, I mean when you're in your late 70s, 80s, or 90s, you're really self-aware of not being able to do things you used to be able to do and seeing others around you do things you used to be able to do. And if you live that, if you're lucky enough, I suppose, to live that long to witness that, I just think there's a benefit to knowing what to expect. And it's just fascinating to me the things that people will say are old school, when to me it's the way it's always been done. Someone says they're 65 and building computers. Someone says they're 52. You know, there's an old expression, age ain't nothing but a number. I know people that are in their 20s that are older than me up here. They've already, you know, thrown in the towel. So that's true. Some people just have a better attitude. I think life's mostly about attitude, not about age. You know what? I want to do something a little different. I've only got about 20 minutes left. There's something I wanted to do, and I think I'm going to throw it in here. So let me take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back and mix this up a little bit. I'll be right back. We're going to take an intermission. Okay. So I'm going to do something very different right now, just so you guys get to know me a little bit better, I suppose, but mostly because I think it'll be fun for me. In the 80s, when you wanted music, you went to the store and you bought it. And I have a bunch of 45s here, and I've been meaning to go through this because I don't even remember what I bought back then. So I thought I would share with you some of the music collection I have here that, sorry it's dark, these are all singles. I've always liked pop music, top 40 music. God, that's really bright. And to give you an idea of the kind of music that I listened to, these records were, in the 1980s, these were 99 cents a piece, usually. And of course, you played them on a record player. So here's Lady Madonna by the Beatles. This is a piece of vinyl that's got a picture on it. That wasn't popular in the 80s. It was just something I saw and I wanted. So here is Scandal, Goodbye to You. I imagine these records are still in good shape. I haven't really taken very good care of them. They've just been sort of ignored in a closet. This is Lou Gramm, Midnight Blue. Lou Gramm was the lead singer of a group called Foreigner. Midnight Blue was a single he had. Tommy Two-Tone, of course, 867-5309. That song became popular when I was in my teenage years. Got to have that. Lou Gramm again with, wait a minute. That ain't right. I already did that one. This is weird because it's like in a, it looks like it's in like a library thing, like it's something you check out, but it's from Tower Records. And this is One Night in Bangkok by Murray Head. It's a great song. Still is a good song. I had a few like that. I don't even remember buying these. Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress by the Hollies. That was an old song in the 80s when I bought it. This is Radioactive by The Firm. This is Dude Looks Like a Lady by Aerosmith, and Angel is on the B-side. Eddie Money's Two Tickets to Paradise. The Electric Light Orchestra, Shine a Little Love, and Don't Bring Me Down. Obviously, Don't Bring Me Down must have been the A-side. This is Say It Isn't So by Hall & Oates, and Family Man is on the other side. Two good songs. This is the Spencer Davis Group with Gimme Some Lovin'. Again, that was an older song at the time. ELO again with Mr. Blue Sky and Hold On Tight. Both are really good songs. The Daz Band, Let It Whip. I haven't heard that in a long time. This is Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend was the lead singer for The Who. Let My Love Open the Door. You know what? I think I have this backwards. This is a group called Sweet. The song is called Love Is Like Oxygen. One of my favorite songs of all time. I love that song. This, when Madonna, was really big in the 80s, this was a song called True Blue, and they made it on blue vinyl. It's kind of cool. You don't see that too often. Some of these may be collector's items, I don't know. Last I checked, nobody wanted them. Tom Petty, Free Fallin'. What is Wah-Wah-Nee Sugar Free? I don't even know what this is. Ooh, well, I'm going to have to look this one up on YouTube. I don't even know what this sounds like, but if I bought it, it had to be good. A lot of these are one-hit wonders, like Hip Sway had one hit called The Honey Thief. Really like that song. Never heard from them again. Sheena Easton, another big act in the 80s. The Lover in Me. I don't even remember that one. Wow. The A-side and the B-side are The Lover in Me. I don't remember that song. I got a bunch of stuff by Sheena Easton, and I don't remember that one. This is a group called Noel, and the song is called Silent Morning. That's a good song. A song by Sylvia called Nobody. Love the lyrics on the song Nobody. It's a great, great song lyrically. Donnie Iris, Love Is Like a Rock. Shaka Khan, I Feel For You. Oh no, this is Love of a Lifetime by Shaka Khan. I forgot about that one. Gosh, I forgot about so many of these. I've collected a lot of MP3s and I thought I had everything. Stacy Q, Music Out of Bounds. I forgot about that one. Gonna have to find that as an MP3. Living on Video by Transx. Great, great song. One Way Love by TKA. Huey Lewis and the News, Jacob's Ladder. U2's With or Without You. The Four Seasons, which is December 63, good song. Bob Welch, Ebony Eyes. The Jets, Rocket to You. The Whispers, Rock Steady. So if you put any of these in YouTube search, you'll get an idea of the kind of music that was a big part of my life when I was a teenager. Tiffany, I saw him standing there. Good old Tiffany. Roxette. The Look. Firefall, You Are the Woman, and Just Remember I Love You. Those are kind of a 70s, late 70s, really slow. Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds from the movie The Breakfast Club. Pebbles, that's got to be, oh, that's the song Girlfriend, good song. Jeff Lorber with Karen White, Facts of Love, good song. Johnny Kemp, Just Got Paid. Wang Chung, song called Let's Go. This artist is called Sly Fox, song's called Let's Go All the Way. Here's Tiffany again with I Think We're Alone Now. Giorgio, another one-hit wonder, song called Lover's Lane. Naughty Naughty by John Parr. Starpoint, song called Restless. And the other side, Object of My Desire, two really good dance songs in the 80s. Donna Allen, song called Sirius, another good dance song from the 80s. The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And Rock the Casbah. Chico DeBarge, wow. Which song was the hit? Talk to Me? Maybe it's Talk to Me. The ones I've forgotten about, make a separate pile. I didn't know that was going to happen. Wild Wild West by Kool Moe Dee featuring Will Smith. New Kids on the Block. Some of these I shouldn't be showing. I should be embarrassed. The Cover Girls. Always like the Cover Girls. Show Me, it's a good song. Bananarama, More Than Physical. Bon Jovi, You Give Love a Bad Name. Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive. Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. Talking Heads, Wild Wild Life. Queen, We Are the Champions and We Will Rock You. Missing Persons, Walking in LA, and Words, two really good songs. Information Society, Walking Away. Two of Hearts by Stacy Q. Sapphire, Thinking of You, I don't remember that one. Karen White, The Way You Love Me. The Fat Boys with Chubby Checkers, doing a remix of The Twist. Very popular German group called Kraftwerk. They were kind of big in the 80s here in the United States. Of course, they've been big in Germany a long time. Billy Squier, The Stroke. Orange Juice Jones, The Rain. Huey Lewis and the News, Power of Love from Back to the Future. Poison, Talk Dirty to Me. What is this? Talk About Love by Shock. Who the heck is Shock? I have no idea. Super Freak by Rick James. Depeche Mode, Strange Love. Star Wars title theme by Miko. If you've never heard Miko, M-E-C-O, you got to do a YouTube search on that. It was so cool what he did. Stevie B, Spring Love. Paul McCartney, Spies Like Us, from the movie Spies Like Us. Dead or Alive, Something in My House. Boy, if you look at the lead singer from Dead or Alive, what's his name? Pete something. He had a bad plastic surgery and they had to repair it. He just looks... Fine Young Cannibals, She Drives Me Crazy. Johnny Hates Jazz, the song is called Shattered Dreams. Berlin, which is a group that always reminded me of Missing Persons, a song called The Metro. Foreigner, Say You Will. Will to Power, Say It's Gonna Rain. I love that song. This group called Diesel, a song called Sausalito Summer Nights. I have always loved this song, and it was the hardest song to find. It's even hard to find today Although with YouTube, I'm sure you can type it in and probably find it without a problem. This was a very, very difficult record to find. And you'll see it has this little thing right up here on the top of the record. This was the tab you'd stick in the jukebox if you were putting this in a jukebox machine. Jane Wiedlin, Rush Hour. I forgot about that song. Jane Wiedlin was a member of the Go-Go's. Rumors the song is called Rumors. The group is Timex Social Club. Round and Round by Rat. It's a heavy rock hair band. Rock On by David Essex. Rock and Roll Fantasy by Bad Company. Rock the Casbah by The Clash. Information Society, What's on Your Mind? You guys are seeing these. Pop Music by the group called M. When the original Batman movie came out, Prince did the theme for it. So this is Party Man and Batman by Prince. That's what the single looked like. Only in My Dreams by Debbie Gibson. Bobby Brown. That's what Bobby Brown used to look like. You guys probably don't even know who he is anymore. Another song by Kraftwerk. This one was called Music Nonstop. ABC, great group. They had a song called Millionaire. This song by Climax called Man Size Love was part of a movie called Running Scared that had Billy Crystal in it, Gregory Hines. Lover Girl by Tina Marie. Kylie Minogue had a song. She did a remake of Locomotion that was pretty high up in the charts. Left of Center by Suzanne Vega. I forgot about that song. Land of Confusion by Genesis. This was a giveaway at a radio station. There's only one song on here I like. It's called 8 Seconds, or the group is called 8 Seconds. And I think it's called Kiss You and It's Dangerous. Anyway, it's a really good song. Never became popular. The Byrne Sisters Band. I wonder who's out tonight. I don't even remember that. George Michael, I Want Your Sex. That was a popular song and controversial. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I Hate Myself for Loving You. Kenny Loggins, I'm All Right. The theme from Caddyshack is great. Another song I forgot about. Alice Cooper's He's Back. The Man Behind the Mask. Put that one over here. Neil Diamond, Headed for the Future. You wouldn't think... I don't really care for Neil Diamond's music. That was more music for older people. But this song, I don't remember how it goes, but I remember it was different for Neil Diamond. Billy Squier again, Everybody Wants You. Wang Chung again. This one is Everybody Have Fun Tonight by Wang Chung. Will to Power, a song called Dreamin'. Devo, the theme from Dr. Detroit. Forgot about that. This is Deo, Deo from the movie Beetlejuice. Danger Zone, Kenny Loggins from the movie Top Gun. Aha, a band that's been very, very famous in, I think it's Norway, only had 2 hits, and most people never heard the second hit, called Cry Wolf. Everybody, of course, knows the song I can't think of, Take On Me. The Kinks, Come Dancing. Peter Wolf. Peter Wolf was the lead singer of the Jay Giles Band. He had a single called Come As You Are. La Trim, they had a song called Cars with the Boom. Really stupid song. Really stupid. Talking Heads, Burning Down the House. Pretty Poison, Catch Me I'm Falling. Dead or Alive, Brand New Lover. Sapphire, Boy I've Been Told. Oh, I forgot about Sapphire. Patrick Hernandez, Born to Be Alive. That was a late 70s, early 80s song. Manfred Mann's Earth Band, Blinded by the Light. Beds Are Burning by Midnight Oil. The one song they had that was a hit they're from Australia. Steve Miller Band, Abracadabra. Talking Heads, And She Was. I'm Too Sexy from Right Said Fred. That had to be one of the last singles I bought. War by Edwin Starr. Jim Croce, Time in a Bottle. That's an old 70s song. The Things We Do for Love by 10cc. Tarzan Boy by Baltimora. This is one of those songs that you know it when you hear it, and nobody knows who sings it. It's been in a few commercials and things, and it was popular very briefly. I always liked it. Right Back Where We Started From by Sonita. Is that what it says? Wow. I'm going to have some memories to go back through here. Hall & Oates, Private Eyes, and I Can't Go For That. Those are both good songs. Part-Time Lover by Stevie Wonder. Carly Simon, Nobody Does It Better. Of course, that's from James Bond. The B-52s, Love Shack. Love Is Like Oxygen by Sweet. I think we're going back. Yeah, so these I've already done. And then just a few more. So what do we have? Paula Abdul. What's this one? Cold Hearted. Erasure, Chains of Love. Peter Gabriel, Big Time. Duran Duran, All She Wants Is. Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy. Why'd I buy that? Steely Dan, Hey 19. Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles, the very first video MTV ever played. Moody Blues, Your Wildest Dreams. This is from Tower Records. I used to buy a lot from Tower Records. The Romantics, Talking in Your Sleep. Taking Care of Business by Bachman Turner Overdrive. Tainted Love by Soft Cell. Everybody loves that song. Orleans, Still the One. The Fix, Stand or Fall. Joe Walsh, Rocky Mountain Way. Kiss, Rock and Roll All Night. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Refugee, great song. The Fix, Red Skies. Loverboy by Billy Ocean. Not to be confused with the group called Loverboy about the same time. This is a song called Loverboy by Billy Ocean. Eye in the Sky by the Alan Parsons Project. What a great song. And the B-side of that is Psychobabble, another one of those songs that lyrically I just love. Don't Do Me Like That by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty. Robert Palmer, Bad Case of Loving You. There's a group called Free. What's the name of the group? Free. And they have a song called All Right Now. Great song. 38 Special, Hold On Loosely. Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper. Argent, Hold Your Head Up. I think that's the only song the only hit they had. Aerosmith, Sweet Emotion. Joe Walsh, Life's Been Good. This song's kind of funny. It's called I Want to Be a Cowboy. It's by a group called Boys Don't Cry. Funny lyrics. Stacy Q, I Love You. I don't even remember that one. The Cutting Crew, I Just Died. Duran Duran, I Don't Want Your Love. This group called Con Can, called I Beg Your Pardon. T'Pau, which is Spock's mother's name from Star Trek. That's what the band named themselves after. Had one hit called Heart and Soul. George Harrison from the Beatles, Got My Mind Set on You. Lisa Lisa and Colt Jam. A song called Go For Yours. I don't even remember that. There's a remake of the song Funky Town by a group called Pseudo Echo. Billy Ocean's Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car. I don't even know what that means. Probably one of the strangest records that surprises people in my collection, at least it did in the 80s, is this group. This is kind of an explicit song, and it certainly was in the 80s. And it's called 88 Lines About 44 Women. and it's by a group called The Nails. Probably most of you have never heard of the group or ever heard of the song. And lyrically, it's basically a guy writing 2 lines of lyrics for 44 women that he's dated, had a relationship with, and how these women were all very different. And I've got a memory card full error. That's just fine. We're still going live, so we should be okay. Victim of Love by Erasure. The Vapors, Turning Japanese. Too Much Time on My Hands by Styx. Paula Abdul. That's what she used to look like, guys, right there. It's Just the Way That You Love Me. The Promise did a song called When in Rome. Great song. Talk Talk was the name of the group, and they did a song called Talk Talk. It's the name of the song and the name of the group. And then we just have a few more left and be done. Sheena Easton, Strut. I always like that song. Straight Up by Paula Abdul. Simply Irresistible by Robert Palmer. He's dead now. Secret Separation by The Fix. Another Con Can song. Oh, I forgot about this one. This is called Puss in Boots. These boots are made for walking. Con Can did these weird kind of dance music songs in the 80s. ABC with the song Poison Arrow. Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes. Opportunities by the Pet Shop Boys. Duran Duran, Notorious. Howard Jones' new song, which is right there. There it is. Need You Tonight by INXS. So if you didn't grow up in the 80s and you saw that, you went, who is Inxis? No, INXS is how you pronounce that. The Eurythmics, Missionary Man. Janet Jackson, Miss You Much. Jody Watley, Looking for a New Love. Fleetwood Mac, Little Lies. That's it. That's however many, 99 cents a piece, man. That's a lot of money in 1980s money. It's still probably over $100 today. So that's kind of the variety of music I listen to. There's dance, there's rock, there's heavy metal, there's a little bit of everything in there, but vast majority of it's probably more dancey. If you watch my video on how I got started, and I talk about music played a really important role in my life at that time, and that was my medicine right there. That was I spent a lot of time playing these records. They helped me a lot. So anyway, just thought I'd share that with you. That was fun, and I did not expect that I've got a handful here that. How many do I have? I completely forgot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I got $20 worth of 20 records that I don't have MP3s of, that I have completely forgotten, and most of them I don't even remember what they sound like, but I must have liked them if I bought them. So that's going to be fun for me a little later. So, all right. Well, with my memory card full and my battery almost dead, we're at over 2 hours in the feed, so I think that's going to wrap it up. Let me just look really, really quickly through the comments, because I'm sure there were probably some classic comments here. A lot of songs in the 80s were popular on MTV, but not so popular on the radio. Yeah. No Bowie. No, I don't have any David Bowie singles. I think I had... Some of my collection was on cassettes. I got rid of all my cassettes because they don't sound like this now. All the high end is gone. They sound terrible. I threw them away. So things like Foreigner. I had a lot of Foreigner albums, a lot of Styx albums, AC/DC, Bowie. Those were all albums because... they had more than one hit song. It would cost as much money to buy the singles to just buy the album. So now I'm getting a notice from the camera that it wants to turn off. Hold on a second. Okay. Well, it's pushing me off is what it's doing, saying, hey, show's over. Get a USB turntable. I wouldn't want to use a USB turntable on these records. I think it would ruin the records. Anyway, so I hope you had a little bit of fun with the stream today. It often gets a little too serious sometimes. Got to just take it a little, take it easy a little bit. Things don't have to be so serious all the time. And get myself a jukebox. I would love to have a jukebox, but I have no place to put it, so it would have to go somewhere else. Have you seen the Guardian of the Galaxy song? Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about Guardians of the Galaxy is a lot of that was music I listened to. Getting the hook from the camera. Do we have any Richie Valens songs? No, that was before my time. I didn't. My dad maybe listened to Richie Valens. I didn't. That was. You got to remember. I was a teenager in the 1980s, so the earliest music I go back to was being a child in the 1970s. I was just a baby in the 1960s. I have no memory. I was born in '68, and I will be turning another year older on Friday. I'm not looking forward to that, but it'll happen. I wish I could play these songs for you guys, but YouTube makes that virtually impossible. So it would be fun to kind of go through and play a few moments of the song and tell you about, what was I doing when that song came out? Why did I buy this record? What did it mean to me? That would be fun. Maybe it'd be more fun for me than it would be for you, but I can't do it with YouTube with their, God forbid you play 10 or 20 seconds of a song. They don't allow it. Super Tank said he was born in '67. Yeah, I was born in '68. Hendrix or Zeppelin? Never was a fan of Hendrix or Janis Joplin or the Doors. But Zeppelin, of course, I love Zeppelin. You got to remember, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Doors, all that was before I was born. So it didn't really mean anything to me. Of course, the Beatles were before I was born, but I didn't appreciate the Beatles until after the 90s grunge and rap was all over the radio, and I didn't like any of it. That's when I discovered the Beatles. Listening to Silent Morning by Noel, remembering when at club picking up chicks. Yeah. I went to the club a lot. Didn't pick up chicks ever, but I went to the club a lot. So that's good. You see, someone's born in '67, someone's born in '72, so we're still in the same sort of range. Enya, look, that's a whole other genre of music that wasn't in that wasn't the '80s, was it? But I love Enya, but I got to be in a certain mood to listen to groups like Enigma and Enya, and there's a group many of you probably never heard of, a Native American group called Brûlé. If you like Enya and you like Enigma, you'll love Brûlé. Carrie was the ultimate ladies' man. I was very shy and awkward and just I used to go to this club called Club Rio in Tempe, Arizona, across from Arizona State University when I was around 23 till I was about 28, I think. And I used to go there and get a beer and sit on a speaker. They had these huge speakers on each corner of the dance floor, and they were like mounted to the ceiling. They went all the way to the floor, and I would sit on the speaker with my beer, and I enjoyed just watching everybody. I very rarely did anything other than that. People are like, are you having a good time? It's hard to tell. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm having the time of my life. Deep Purple? No. Again, that's before me. That was before me. Mega Anonymous Freedom, thank you for the kind words. Carrie, use Ustream. Well, even on Ustream, you're not allowed to play music. I mean, people do, but you're not supposed to. Maybe worth doing one of these days. All right, well, there's my camera really starting to get annoyed with me. So let me let you go. Thank you guys for watching the stream, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now. Can you see me? Bye for now.